Good morning, my lovely students. Today's session is about our third theme, man and his environment. In lesson 1 here, we have to recognize the interdependence between animals and plants in the same environment. But what does the word environment mean? This word is derived from the French word environ, which means encircle. In simple words, we can say that everything which surrounds us is called environment, or it can be defined as all surrounding conditions that have direct impact on all human beings and animals. How can animals and plants get benefit from each other? Let's see. By living in the same environment, animals and plants depend on each other to create equilibrium in nature or balance in nature. This interdependence between animals and plants may show through protection. So, how can animals protect plants and how can plants protect animals? By observing activity 1 here, which shows the protection between animals and plants, we can see the ladybug. This insect or ladybird, as we know before, it is an insectivore which feeds on food of animal origin, or it eats insects. These black insects, these insects are called aphids. Aphids, as we see here in the first photo, they suck the elaborated sap of the tree. Aphids feed on food of plant origin, so they suck the elaborated sap from the tree. Aphids here harm this plant, but on the other hand, the ladybug is the enemy of the aphids because it feeds on aphids. So, in this way, ladybugs help or protect the plants by getting rid of these harmful insects. Document 2 shows another form or another type of interdependence. Tits protect plants. Tits are a kind of birds. In the first photo here, we can see caterpillars. Caterpillars feed on green leaves. They are herbivorous insects. But they harm the plants because they make, for example, such holes in the plants or in the leaves of the plants. So, some birds like tit here are the caterpillar's natural enemies because they attack caterpillars and protect the plants from being harmed. Document 3 shows another kind of protection. Plants protect animals here, not animals protect plants. How? Because, as we can see, squirrel make a home or shelter from the tree, and also other birds can build their nests on the trunk of the tree. So trees may be a habitat or shelter for some animals like the squirrel and other birds. In activity 2, how can animals favor the reproduction of flowering plants? How? Let's see some examples. This document shows the dispersion of pollen grains. In the first theme, we have studied that bees, insects, or birds can help in the pollination process of flowering plants, in the reproduction of flowers. So, these insects like the bees and butterflies help in pollination of flowers. How? While sucking the nectar, pollen grains stick to their legs. And then, by moving from one flower to another, they transport the pollen grains to help in the pollination process in order to allow flowers to reproduce. Another kind of dispersion, but here not dispersion of pollen, dispersion of seeds by frugivorous animals. Frugivorous animals are the animals that eat or feed on fruits. While transporting fruits, these animals, like some birds, can drop some seeds that germinate and give new plants far from their protection or production site. Document 3 shows another kind of dispersion of or favoring flowering reproduction by the fox droppings, for example. As we know that the fox is an omnivorous animal which feeds on fruits and other animals. So it is an omnivore. While examining its droppings means the waste products, okay? There might be non-digested cherry seeds, for example. These seeds can't be digested. So these undigested seeds may constitute a way of dispersion of plant seeds. Another way of dispersion by the fur or the legs of other mammals. For example, seeds may be transported once hooked to the fur of animals like sheep, goats, or stuck to their legs. Activity 3. How can animals also favor the aeration and fertilization of the soil? Of course, fertilized soil is important to the plants as it contains many minerals. How are these minerals transported to the soil? Let's see how. We have in this activity to name the animals that favor fertilization and indicate how can these animals help improve the quality of the soil. In this document, the fertilization of the soil is done by different decomposers or other different microorganisms like bacteria, earthworm, ants, collembolon, arachnids, moles, etc. Decomposers such as these mentioned microorganisms are small living things that live in the soil. They decompose or break down the animal and plant remains or debris, such as the dead leaves and cadaver remains made of organic matter into mineral matter. For example, by explaining the food chain, we can observe that at the end of every food chain, we have a decomposer. And these decomposers break down the dead material of this living thing and return them to the soil as minerals. These minerals may fertilize the soil and make it more fertile and ready to be planted. Document 2 shows the aeration of the soil by the earthworm. Look at the earthworm. It digs galleries in the soil and sometimes it swallows some soil by its way. The earthworm, as we know before, is a decomposer that lives in the humid soil, wet soil, not the dry one. To dig their tunnels, they are able to swallow large quantities of soil, which they then release on the surface as worm casting, which are rich in mineral components. These living creatures feed on dead leaves that they find on the surface and they carry deep down to consume them. Thus, by moving up and down, these earthworms eat the soil and aerate it. In addition, the galleries they dig facilitate the installation of plant roots and their water supply. So the earthworm helps in fertilization and aeration of the soil. Activity 4 in this interdependence is about the food relations among living things. As we know before that all living things need to feed. They find their food in their living environment. Animals feed on plants, animals feed on animals, or others feed on both. As we know before that the food diet of an animal can be or maybe a herbivore, a carnivore, or an omnivore. So, this dietary relationship between living beings in the same environment is known as a food chain. What is a food chain? A food chain, as we know before, is made of several living beings, and every living being in a food chain is called a link. For example, in this food chain, I can see a green leaf, sheep, wolf. Any food chain will start or should start with a producer. Producer means the green plants that can produce or make their own food. The first living thing that comes after the producer should be a herbivorous animal or an omnivore, of course, we can say that, because this animal must eat the green leaf. So the arrow here means is eaten by. This first herbivore animal is also called primary consumer. Consumer are all the animals that eat. Next, the third link here is the wolf. The wolf can feed on or eat the sheep. We can say that this is a secondary consumer. What type of consumer here is? Of course, it should be a carnivore or also an omnivore. Here we can find a food web. As we know before that the food chain is made of several living things based on or arranged according to what they eat. But a food web is made of several intersecting food chains have a producer or common producer. Let's see. In this food chain or food web, I have green leaf and wheat seeds. These are two producers. So let's follow the arrow. The wheat seeds here can be eaten by the mouse, and the mouse is eaten by the snake, or it is eaten by the falcon. Let's move to another one. The green leaf is eaten by the locust, locust eaten by the frog, frog eaten by the snake, and the snake is eaten by the falcon. Let's move to the third one. Green leaf is also eaten by the locust, locust eaten by the spider, spider eaten by tit, and tit eaten by falcon, or we can say spider eaten by snake and the snake eaten by the falcon. This is a terrestrial food web which takes place on land. I have another food web which is aquatic food web that is called also marine food web. In the marine food web or food chain, we see that there are two terms here. Phytoplankton means plant plankton and zooplankton, which is animal plankton. Phytoplankton, of course, these plants are eaten by animals. So, sardine is eaten by tuna. Or the shrimp, for example, can eat plants, and the whale or the seagull feed on shrimps. Also, the goldfish eats plants while the seagull eats the goldfish. This is an aquatic food web which takes place in marine life or in water. This is the first session about the interdependence between animals and the plants living in the same environment, and we are going to move into another session also in the third theme about the human impact on the environment. The human impact as it is good impact or bad impact. See you later and thanks for watching.